Hey family, it's Patsy White. It's really late, and I was about to go to bed, but I felt so compelled to record some thoughts that were on my mind and heart in the wake of the gentleman Rishan, drawing a blank on his name, who was killed by two police officers yesterday. And you know, of course, it set off a number of things in the city of Atlanta, which is where I lived. Before I moved here to Colorado, and the police chief resigned, and the mayor accepted her resignation. And one of the things, I've had a lot of conversations with people, and one of them, really, actually, many of them, boiled down to a number of things. But there's one primary thing it boils down to, and that hiding under the questions, hiding under the desire for conversations with me. I believe from the conversations I've had with people, especially folks who either they came to this country as immigrants, or they're here temporarily on a student visa. And then my white brothers and sisters who are American citizens but haven't been exposed to this type of, um, outcry and just public expression of anger and frustration. The underlying question, I believe, that folks, some ask indirectly, some ask directly, is, you know, is it really that bad? Um, I have a I have a pretty positive demeanor. I think sometimes I can be quite serious because I can be intense about things. But I also love to laugh. I also have a lot of joyous times in my life, and I'm so grateful for that. And so I know sometimes people want to know that, you know, did anything happen to me? I don't seem to be, bothered by it. I don't seem to be depressed or frustrated or angry or, lashing out at people. So, it must have been different for me. Well, there's a couple of things I want to say. Is that I'm trying to keep this phone steady because I'm usually using um, a better equipment. But you know, depending upon where I lived, as geographically, depending upon my age, what I was driving, how I was dressed, what I was attempting to do, um, sometimes that had an impact on how I was treated. Um, the older I've gotten, the less problems I've had with the police. But then, there are other issues that come up. So, in that question of is it that bad, it really is like, I believe, two parts. One is, please don't tell me it's as bad as people are saying it is, because dot dot dot. And that's the part that I think anybody who's struggling with this needs to fill in the blank. If it were as bad as these people in the streets who are, holding signs saying Black Lives Matter, if it's that bad, well, then what would that mean to you? What would you have to face? The other part of that question is, or the other side of that is, it couldn't be that bad because I don't see it, so it must not be the case. So, one of the things that is amazing about this country, and I love that I'm an American, and I love that I've had the experience of the freedom of being an American, so that even with the obstacles that I have faced and encountered, some of them violent, some of them heinous, that I have the ability to recover enough to keep pushing forward to become what God has called me to be. But there were plenty of rough times in my life as a result of the things I was experiencing from the outside and the torment that was happening on the inside, that there were times when I really tried to take my life. And so, in terms of is it that bad, it's worse than you know. But what's important is that each of us has to face that question. We have it on different levels. Now, a neighborhood I was living in before I left Georgia, there was stuff that happened all the time. I mean, three children were mauled by pit bulls. Um, well, actually, one child was killed, another was mauled, another was bitten. And then, not long after that, a man was mauled by a pit bull. I was walking with a neighbor. We were surrounded by pit bulls. Thankfully, I had beautiful spiritual teaching that had me take dominion over that situation, and I chased the pit bulls away. But that was because of a spiritual revelation I've had since going to Bible college. But the most important thing that I want to share is that we have to have the courage to look at what is behind the fear of noticing what if it is that bad. So we have a fear of what it might require of us. And I think this is where we really start getting into the sticky topics. Because for some people, when they hear about, well, what is it going to take from me if I accept that it's that bad? Well, that's coming from the side of not having compassion. You know, those of us who love our family members, if we see our family members going through something and they're suffering, we want to stop it. We want to do whatever we can to help them get out of that situation or to help them conquer it if it's, oppressing them. But when we don't feel compassion for the group or the person who's going through something, but there's some place where we feel like we're supposed to be responsible, but we don't want to be, then that means that there's some place inside of us that has dissociated our human connection with that person because there's something in us that's more important. There's something we possess that's more important. And when that something that we possess is more important than the human being on the other side, that goes against God because God wants us to love each other as Christ loved us. He said, "A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you love one another. Thereby will men know that you are my disciples, because you have love for one another." So if we're not able to love somebody and have compassion more than our perceived comfort, perceived is a very important word, and more than our perceived financial security, and perceived is a very important word, then it means we have placed something else above what God wants us to put first. So I want to just put this out because the question is, what would it mean to you if it was as bad as the people in the streets are saying it is? A colleague of mine, someone I have great respect for who's not from this country, who may know that I'm referencing the conversation that we've been having, was, wondering if a particular series was actually an exaggeration about slavery roots. And I was explaining to her that it was a very cleaned up version of what happened, and that for the most part, there's a silence that really many of us just don't bother to speak about the things that go on, day to day. And so, what really is important is, and I've said this a few times, but I'm going to say it again, is to ask yourself the question, and this might be a great exercise. Take a notepad, an 8 and a by 11 notepad, and put at the top of it, what if it is as bad as they say? And then just write, stream of consciousness, list what it would mean if it was that bad. Because I think the fear of what people think it might mean is getting in the way of understanding what it actually would mean. Because our fear will prevent us from exploring what's underneath the surface. The unknown can seem very scary, but it's not when we shine the light of God's love on it. Because when we shine the light of God's love on it, it no longer has power over us, nor does it have the ability to control our compassion and our response and our change and our ability to transform to be as part of the solution to the things that we see going on. So thanks for listening, and God bless you. These are hard times, but God is still and always will be so good, never changing, always the same, and His promises toward us never change either. So thanks for listening. Stay encouraged. God bless you.